Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast.
Hey, good to be here.
It's funny, we're well into 2026 now, and it feels like we've been talking about hybrid work for, what, half a decade?
At least. Yeah.
And yet it's still so messy. If you ask 10 different companies what their hybrid policy is, you get like 10 totally different answers.
So absolutely. And a lot of confused looks. I think we're past that initial panic of can we even do this
Yeah.
from the early 20s, but now we're stuck. We're in this awkward middle phase. And a lot of companies are running on what I call vibe-based policies.
Vibe-based. That sounds like a legal nightmare waiting to happen.
It is. It really is. It's that whole come in when you feel like it, but I'll be quietly annoyed if you don't think. It's vague, it's unfair, and it just opens the door for so much bias.
Right.
And that's exactly why this deep dive feels so necessary right now. We're going to be digging into this super comprehensive guide. It's actually a full template for hybrid work policies by Felix Rumer over at smartkeys.org.
And this isn't just another article about, having better Zoom calls. Right?
No, not at all. Think of it more like a strategic blueprint. It's aimed right at that tricky spot. Companies would say 100 to 500 people. And the goal is to shift how we think about this. It's not a perk. It's not a headache. It's a tool for retention, for saving money, for productivity.
And the data really backs that up. I was looking at the notes. Back in 2023, something like 74% of U.S. companies were already planning on permanent mixed schedules.
Right.
But now, here in 2026, the whole conversation has changed. It's not about can we do it. It's more like, is what we're doing actually working?
Exactly. The focus has shifted from just, presence to measurable objectives. And the guide argues that to get there, you have to start with the basics, the vocabulary. It sounds a bit academic, but honestly, the main reason these policies fail is that no one even agrees on what the words mean.
I have to admit, I'm probably guilty of that. I use hybrid, flexible, and remote pretty much interchangeably. Is that a big mistake?
It's a massive one, and it just creates so much confusion and, frankly, operational drag. The source draws a really hard line. So, hybrid, that's strictly a location model.
Location, okay.
It just answers one question: where are you working? You split your time between the office and home. Simple.
Got it. So hybrid equals location. What about flexible?
Flexible is all about time and schedule. This is where you get things like compressed work weeks or maybe staggered start times, shifting your hours for caregiving.
I see the distinction now. So you could be fully in office 5 days a week, but still have a flexible schedule because you work, say, 10 to 7 to handle school drop-off.
Exactly. Or the other way around. You could be fully remote, never see the office, but you're on a very rigid 9 to 5 schedule. That's remote, but it's not flexible.
So why does getting that definition right matter so much? It still feels a little like we're splitting hairs here.
Oh, it's critical. It's because of what the guide calls the manager interpretation trap. If you mix them up, a manager might think they're just approving a work-from-home day, but the employee thinks they've been cleared to work at 2 in the morning because they take the afternoon off.
No.
Those are two completely different agreements. And if you don't define them separately, you can't manage them separately.
And you definitely can't make it fair.
Not a chance.
Which, okay, that brings us to the part that I think causes the most drama. Eligibility. The whole fairness trap.
The drama is very real.
It is. If I'm in the accounting department and I see the marketing team gets to work from home every Friday, my boss says I can't. My first thought is, that's not fair. How do you even begin to solve that?
Well, you solve it by taking the personal element out of it. The source pushes this role-first approach. Eligibility isn't about how long you've been at the company or your commute or, whether you have a dog. It's based purely on the actual tasks your role requires.
So how does a manager figure that out without just going with their gut feeling?
You have to audit the job itself. Does this role absolutely need specialized on-site equipment? Is the core function face-to-face client interaction? If the work is mostly cloud-based and the answer is no, then the role is eligible, period.
That sounds a little cold, but I can see how it protects the company.
It protects them from discrimination claims. I mean, think about it. If you let Jane work from home because she has kids, but you tell Mark he can't because he's single and should be in the office, you've just walked into a huge legal mess.
Right.
By tying it to the role, you depersonalize the decision. It's not about you, it's about the job.
Okay, but what if the role is eligible, but the person in the role, isn't performing? They're just not getting the work done.
And that is where the performance standards clause is so important. The policy has to be explicit. Remote work is a mode of operating. It's not some permanent right. It's a privilege. And if your performance slips, if you start missing deadlines, that privilege can be revoked.
I like that. It puts the accountability back on the employee. But let's flip that. What about the people who are performing too much? That always-on feeling where you think you have to be on Slack at 9 p.m. just to prove you're working?
Digital burnout. Yeah, it's the silent killer of hybrid teams.
Does the policy template actually address that?
It does, head on. It's under a section called Operational Rhythms. The big recommendation is to set up core hours. So, for example, maybe everyone has to be available from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Time.
Wait, just 2 hours a day? That seems really short.
Well, that's the point. It's not that you only work for 2 hours. It's about creating a guaranteed window of overlap. If your team is spread between, say, London and New York, you need that time when you know everyone is online and available. Outside that window, you allow for local offsets.
So during core hours, you're on call, but outside of that?
Outside of that, the guide pushes really hard for an async default.
Async. Can you break that down for anyone who might still be glued to their instant messenger?
Asynchronous communication. It basically means I sent you a message, and I do not expect you to reply instantly. The default for just, regular status updates should be chat or email. Live meetings, that synchronous time, that should be treated as expensive. You save it for the important stuff. Making big decisions, brainstorming, working through a conflict.
Just hearing that makes me feel calmer. Fewer just checking in meetings.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
And it ties into another one of those hot button issues. The camera rule.
Oh no, the camera's on mandate. It feels like every manager loves this and every employee secretly hates it.
Well, the guide actually advises against a blanket mandate. The argument is that you should use cameras strategically. For a big project kickoff, yes.
Yeah.
For a client presentation, absolutely. But for routine daily stand-up, it suggests offering opt-outs.
For Zoom fatigue?
That, and also things like neurodiversity. For some people, looking at that grid of faces is just sensory overload. It actually makes it harder for them to listen. Plus, there are simple bandwidth issues. A good policy has to be inclusive, not just about surveillance.
Speaking of surveillance, this was something in the guide that really jumped out at me as a very 2026 problem. Response SLAs.
Service level agreements for humans. I love it. It just sets such clear expectations. For example, an urgent chat gets a response within 1 to 2 hours. An email, you've got about 8 business hours. A formal ticket, 1 business day.
And that just kills the panic, right? If I email you, I know I don't need to refresh my inbox for the next half-hour waiting.
Exactly. It removes all that anxiety of, are they mad at me? Are they ignoring me? Clarity is kindness.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The hardware.
Yeah.
Because all this flexibility is great in theory, but somebody's got to pay for the monitor.
The age-old question.
Yeah.
The template is very clear here to stop the expense report wars. The company provides the core tools: laptop, dock, and a role-appropriate monitor.
Just one monitor? I feel like some developers might have an issue with that.
Huh. Well, that term role-appropriate is doing a lot of work there. If you're a coder, maybe you get 2. But the point is, they are company property. For everything else, your internet, your electricity, your chair, the guide suggests a capped monthly stipend.
So I can't try to expense my $2,000 ergonomic gaming chair.
You can try, but the policy will have a cap. But there's a weird twist here on equipment that I found fascinating. It's about safety.
Safety in my own house.
Yes. Turns out, OSHA's rules don't just disappear because you're in your guest room. Employers still have a duty of care. So the guide actually recommends giving employees a checklist for their home office.
A checklist? You mean like, is your fire extinguisher up to code?
More like, is your lighting good enough? Are your power cords taped down so you won't trip? Does your chair provide proper support?
That feels a little invasive, like HR is going to come inspect my apartment.
It's usually a self-certification. You just sign a form. But it really matters because if you trip over your own laptop cord at 2 p.m. on a workday, that could be a workplace injury. Workers' comp could apply.
Wow. I had not even considered the insurance side of this.
It's huge. But honestly, the bigger risk in 2026 isn't tripping over a cord. It's your data getting out.
Security.
The absolute non-negotiables. MFA on everything. Mandatory VPN when you're on public Wi-Fi. But it also includes a specific warning about something called shoulder surfing.
Shoulder surfing? What's that?
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the person sitting behind you at the coffee shop,
Yeah.
literally reading what's on your screen. The policy has to be explicit. You cannot review sensitive company data in public without a privacy filter on your screen. No looking at merger docs while you're waiting for your flight.
That's a real behavioral change. It's so easy to just pop open the laptop anywhere.
And that's where the rules have to be rigid. Now, speaking of rigid rules, we have to talk about hourly employees. This is where so many companies trip up.
Ah, the FLSA compliance part. Yeah, I've heard horror stories about this.
It is a minefield. For your non-exempt, your hourly employees, the rules for tracking time are incredibly strict.
Because if they answer one email at 8 p.m., that's technically work.
That is work. And if they aren't paid for those 5 minutes, that could be considered wage theft. The guide is emphatic that all overtime has to have written pre-approval.
Written? That seems so bureaucratic.
It has to be. You need that paper trail. Because if an employee works unapproved overtime, you still have to pay them for it. That's the law. But you can then discipline them for breaking the policy. It sounds tough, but it's what stops that time creep culture.
So it's actually protecting the employee from feeling pressured to work for free.
It's a critical boundary.
Okay, another money topic in here. Location pay. This is the whole I'm moving to a tropical island scenario.
Or the I'm moving from New York City to Omaha scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The policy has to include a clause that says if an employee permanently moves, their base pay might be adjusted based on the cost of labor in that new market.
That's always so controversial. People say, my work is the same, why should my pay be different?
It is. But the bigger issue for the company is tax law. If you move to a new state, or worse, a new country, and you don't tell HR you've just created a legal and payroll catastrophe, the company might not even be registered to do business there.
Which sort of brings us to the bigger picture here. It's 2026. The jobs themselves are different.
Totally. I mean, if you look at the source material, the job titles are getting so specialized. We're not just hiring engineers. We're hiring AI prompt operations specialists or cloud security automation engineers.
AI prompt operations specialist. That is a very 2026 job title.
Isn't it? And the person who's best in the world at that job probably doesn't live within driving distance of your office. They might be in Berlin or São Paulo.
So how do you even pay someone in São Paulo? You can't just add them to your U.S. payroll.
You can't. And that's where the guide gets into global payroll and using what's called an EOR, an employer of record. Think of services like Deal or Remote.
How does an EOR work? Is it like a temp agency?
Kind of, but for legal compliance. The EOR becomes the official employer in Brazil. They handle all the local taxes, benefits, everything. And you just pay the EOR a fee. It solves that whole legal headache. But your policy needs to acknowledge that structure.
So you need a policy that can handle someone in Ohio and someone in Berlin all at the same time.
That is the complexity of work in 2026. And, speaking of complexity, AI monitoring.
Of course. I feel like every document in 2026 has an AI section. This isn't about using AI to help you write, is it?
No. This is about the company using AI to watch you. There are tools that can track your keystrokes, analyze the sentiment of your Slack messages, even predict if you're about to burn out based on how you move your mouse.
That is deeply creepy. That feels like Big Brother has set up shop in my home office.
It's incredibly intrusive. And the new regulations around this are all about one thing: transparency. The policy has to state, in plain English, this is how we are monitoring you. You can't have some secret AI judging your productivity in the background.
Because trust is everything. If I think you're spying on me, my work is going to suffer.
Exactly. You end up destroying the culture you're trying to make more productive.
Okay, so you've got the definitions, the safety rules, global payroll, AI. This is a massive document. How do you actually get this thing rolled out without a full-scale rebellion from your managers?
You definitely do not just email out a PDF on a Friday afternoon. That's a guaranteed failure. The guide's #1 point is manager training.
Because they're on the front lines.
They're everything.
Yeah.
And you have to train them to shift their whole mindset from counting the hours someone is online to coaching them on outcomes. That is a huge skill change for a lot of managers.
So train the managers. What's next?
You run a pilot. You pick one department and you test the policy for 90 days. See what breaks. Is the VPN connection awful? Is the core hours window totally wrong for the team?
Yeah.
You use little pulse surveys to get constant feedback.
Feedback loops. Makes sense. But what about the stick? What happens if someone just ignores the policy and decides to work from a beach somewhere without telling anyone?
There has to be a clear escalation path, a ladder of consequences. It starts with feedback, then it moves to a formal performance improvement plan, a PIP, and then, this is the big one, revocation of remote privileges.
So you get called back into the office.
You get called back. If you can't handle the autonomy, you lose the autonomy. And if the behavior continues, it can lead to termination. A policy without consequences isn't a policy at all. It's just a suggestion.
It really feels like the big takeaway here is that a real hybrid policy isn't just about being nice. It's an incredibly rigorous operational model.
That's it exactly. A good policy protects the company's data, it protects the employee's time and focus, and it makes sure that when you do get together in person, it's for a high-value reason. It's not just for taking attendance.
So if you get the policy right, the location, it almost becomes irrelevant.
That is the ultimate goal. The future of work really isn't about where you sit. It's about how you measure the value you create. And if you get that framework right, the geography just kind of dissolves.
That is a fantastic way to put it. If you get the framework right, the geography dissolves. Well, thank you so much to you and to everyone for tuning in to this deep dive on the SmartKeys podcast.
My pleasure.
If you found this useful, or maybe if you're suddenly realizing your own company's policy needs a serious rewrite, please subscribe to the show for more deep dives into the future of work. And be sure to check the show notes. We've put a link to Felix Romer's full, comprehensive hybrid work policy template. It's definitely worth a read. Until next time.